Good morning, students. Yesterday we had seen that how Mahabharat actually is, why we have picked up Mahabharat to study about the kinship, the marriage, the social rules, the conventions, the culture, because it is if it talks a great deal about a lot of issues and a lot of topics, and which which makes us very easy to understand a lot of things. And of course, we also discussed yesterday that most of the things, because they talk about the royal family and the rich and the this is something which is a problem in all the cultures and all the empires. But then it is also very obvious that they do have an effect, because they are the ones, because it's the upper sections of the society which set an example for the lower sections of the society. So if the upper section is doing something in a certain sort of way, that is something which becomes aspirational. And this is what also the poorer sections of the society also want to emulate. Okay, so the reality would not be too contrasting or too different. Okay, so today we come to but students, in this chapter particularly, please pay attention to these terms, patrilineal, matrilineal, uh, endogamy, exogamy. There are a lot of terms which keep coming all the time, and they at times get confusing as well. Okay, but you don't have a choice. Please pay attention. Remember them. Okay. Now we have already seen what Mahabharat is about, and we all know what Mahabharat is about. We do not need to elaborate on the story of the Mahabharat. But coming to this map, students, in this chapter particularly, the maps and the one which we saw about the kingship and the modern empire and the Mahajanpad, these maps are extremely important, not just for the internal examinations, but you would always get questions from these maps even in the board examinations. Okay, so the concern with patrilineal was not unique to ruling families. It is evident in, as we just said, that and we had also seen yesterday that the family lineage was always meant, that is from father to son and grandson, rather than from the mother's side. It was always through the father's side. And please go through these boxes as well. Okay, they are very informative. uh, you know Rules of marriage. While sons were important for the continuity of the patrilineage, daughters were viewed rather differently within the same framework. They had no claims to the resources of the household. At the same time, marrying them into families outside the kin was considered desirable. The system, called exogamy, that is literally marrying outside, meant that the lives of young girls and women belonging to families that claimed high status were often carefully regulated to ensure that they were married at the right time and to the right person. This gave rise to the belief that Kanyadan, or the gift of a daughter in marriage, was an important religious duty of the father. Now, students, very, very obvious that the same culture and tradition continues even today. Nothing has changed. You use, your sister, or you know or your cousin sisters, and you would see all around in your relatives in the family, you would always see in the marriage, the father doing the kanyadan of the daughter, and giving her as a gift to the groom's family or the boy's family. So this is something which has continued even now. And there are a lot of things from those times which we follow even today. And with the emergence of new towns, social life became more complex. People from near and far met to buy and sell their products and share ideas in the urban milieu. This may have led to questioning of the earlier beliefs and practices. Faced with this challenge, the Brahmins responded by laying down codes of social behavior in great detail. These were meant to be followed by Brahmins in particular and rest of the society in general. So, so students, you have to understand one thing, that today when you talk about in politics and in the media, in the news channels, they try to portray an image of a great demarcation between the upper caste and the lower caste and things like that, which is not as bad, which the politicians or the political parties would like to tell you. These rules were most stringently followed by Brahmins, um, and they had to follow it. Imagine all those rules that had to be followed by them. It was not easy for them, and for rest of the people who were non-Brahmins, not that it was optional, but then yes, it was much more flexible for them. And there is another thing you have to understand. Now you're in class 12, you have to kind of broaden your horizons of your intelligence as well. Students, you have to understand, when an empire is or forget about empire, when people and the society is getting more and more complex in structure, the communities are getting more and more, their interests are getting intertwined, they are expanding. People from different faith systems, belief systems, different cultures, they are coming, living together, because the whole society is getting more and more complex. The society is also expanding. Now, a village in earlier times, that is, earlier times I'm talking about, not 1980, of course, I'm talking about 5,000 years ago. In those days, one village could have started with 10 huts, and then it would have expanded to 50, then probably 500, then probably 5,000, right? And that's how there used to be, after a village, then it used to become town, from town to a major city, like say Magad, that is Patliputra, or probably Varanasi, or probably Ujjain. So they were huge cities at those point in times, right? So naturally, when so many people start living in, you have to come up with rules, you have to come up with a certain structure, a certain framework. Otherwise, things would not fall in place. It is very easy for us after 5,000 years to start, talking nonsense about everything, and start looking everything from the prism of caste and casteism and upper caste and lower caste. But you have to understand one very important thing. When the communities are expanding, more and more people are coming into the fold, and more and more people want to and more people are migrating from the poor kingdoms to the richer kingdoms, and so much of migration is happening due to trade, and a lot of people who want to settle permanently. You have to come up with rules of engagement, you have to come up with a framework in society. Otherwise, it would not work, whether it is in India, and even and I'm sure you, in probably a few chapters from now, you would also read about the Mongol civilization I'm sorry, if you have already, you're in class 12, so you must have read it in class 11, of course. Even there, you must have found out that the Mongols, when they started expanding like crazy and had occupied half of planet Earth, they had to come up with a lot of rules and regulations and framework, because even people as brutal and ruthless as Mongols understood that the solution for every problem cannot be just chopping off the head of the people you rule, right? You would have to, yes, of course, it was very tempting if you happen to be a Mongol, because that would be the favorite solution for them. But even Mongols understood that yes, you would have to come up with, when you have so many people under your empire, if your empire has expanded, if your territories are expanding, if people from different cultures, different traditions, all of them live within your empire, then you would have to come up with rules, laws, frameworks which are unified, which everyone needs to obey. Otherwise, then it becomes a problem of preferential treatment, favoritism, and then the society never quite gets into in a proper manner, because there would always be social conflicts. So every ruler, every society, forget about if it is a empire and an emperor kind of a thing, even if it is in a situation like an oligarchy, like Indus Valley civilization was, where there was no clear ruler or an empire or an emperor sort of an arrangement. Even they must be having so many rules, because the Indus Valley civilization, it was far more it had so many towns in it, was far more expansive, much bigger than even today's Pakistan. Because if you look at the map of Indus Valley sites, then it's not just that it's in Pakistan, like the prominent sites, of course, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, all of them are in Pakistan, but there are a lot of sites which are in Gujarat, the Run of Kutch, Dholavira, and all of them. So naturally, you need rules, you need framework when you have urban settlements, and that is what this chapter is also talking about. And if you can understand this, it would be very easy for you to understand the other topics that are going to come in this chapter, because you would have to. Any society needs to, and because we are talking about 3,000 years before Christ, that is from today's calendar, 5,000 years from today, that is 5,500 years. So naturally, you have to set up the rules of engagement. You have to set up the rules of the game, because we are humans. It is not animals. That the purpose of animal life, the animal kingdom, is just to eat and feed themselves and procreate, and then another generation, and then eat and feed and procreate, and then another generation. No, human beings achieve for many more things during their lifetimes. For us, it is not just eating and procreation and marriage. There's so much that we do, so much that we can't do without. And naturally, for those things, you have to have the rules of the game, the rules for social life, the rules for administrative life, the rules for law, for crime, there's the rules for marriages. Everything needs to be very minutely attended to, and that is what we see in this chapter. And a lot of topics that would come would be reflective of that thought, which our early forefathers had. We shall continue. Thanks.